Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today we are looking at the Nausicaan fighter starship. So, the Nausicaan ships were vessels employed by the Nausicaan pirates during the mid 22nd century for raiding freighter trade routes. These vessels were armed with fore and aft plasma cannons and possessed primitive shields, although their weapons were considered formidable to a Y class freighter. Nausicaan ships were outmatched by the NX class starships, whose spatial torpedoes were capable of piercing Nausicaan shields. Three of these vessels operated out of the Nausicaan cargo station, attacked the ECS Fortunate, and raided its cargo for a period of several months during the 2151 era. Fortunately, the Starfleet vessel Enterprise NX-01 was able to offer assistance during that year. And of course, this all comes from Enterprise Fortunate Son. All right. Oddly enough, we do not get a lot of stats for Nausicaan ships. So here we are. All right. Looking at the background information. All right. In the script of the Fortunate Son, this type of vessel was described as small and fast. The bridge of the Nausicaan ship was scripted as a dark, although the final vision of the room clearly featured large, colorful wall panels. Also, the offensive and defensive specifications of the Nausicaan ship were scripted, thus, medium yield plasma cannons, single tech shielding, uh, where the word tech was later to be replaced by a more technical term in the episode's final version. This became fore and aft plasma cannons, and a less direct reference immediately thereafter to a craft having shields. All right, and Star Trek Enterprise production design team received the instruction to design the studio model for the small Nausicaan attack fighter during the show's first season, even though the Nausicaan ships had never before been portrayed. Inspiration for the forthcoming design was taken from the now Nausicaans themselves had been established as typically behaving due to their thuggish nature as belligerent troublemakers. Their vessels had to have a fittingly threatening and aggressive appearance. Illustrator John Eves began designing the Nausicaan vessel by sketching out a variety of basic shapes. I just threw a whole bunch of stuff together, he stated. These initial sketches included a design concept for a Vulcan ship, which Eves had drawn earlier. The same ship layout with blade like curves gives Eves a design direction which he expanded upon on or in the other sketches. As he became increasingly more inspired, Eves felt the look was or he was aiming for was somewhat between the bottom of the shovel and the manta ray. The producers approved of the final illustrations as the final version, a configuration Eves likened to the manta ray. On this one, he continued, they chose a ship right off the first pass. It was a busy show, so I don't or didn't get to flesh it out a bit more, but he didn't need to. The reason it wasn't essential to John Eves to plan all the details of the Nausicaan craft was that the CGI artist knew how to proceed from his rudimentary design. Anyway, at Eden FX, lead CG artist Pierre Drolet took Eve's illustration and digitally turned it into a three-dimensional model. Drolet incorporated some of his own ideas into the design, shading the Nausicaan ship with an earthly color scheme and added detailing such as the forward plasma cannons. All these finishing touches helped give the ship its roughly sought after aggressive look. The bridge of the Nausicaan ship was built on the backdrop set of Paramount Stage 8. Presumably, these vessels had warp drive and could travel faster than warp 1.8, the maximum speed of the Fortunate, for them to be able to consistently locate, track, and attack and raid said vessels over an extended period of time. Issue 30 of Star Trek The Official Starship Collection lists the Nausicaan fighters as having a maximum warp speed of 2 and a length of 90 meters. So I will have to change a little bit here. All right. And that's really what we get here. You know, as I'm kind of starting to create ships here, and we had done the Antares, a version of what the Antares could have been, wanting to get some sort of uh, raiders and everything else to kind of go along with it. So looking at some of the races that we know, unfortunately, we do not get a lot of extra ships, especially in role playing game sense, which you would think Nausicaans, having been brought in on the next generation, would have been one of those races. But unfortunately, we did not get anything until um, Enterprise. So, not thinking about when some of these books were published and everything else, that may very well be the answer why we have yet to see in a role playing game really a Nausicaan ship. So let's move on over and see what I have created for us to kind of use as a fill in for a Nausicaan ship until anyone comes up with anything better, and we'll go from there. All right, so looking at this Nausicaan fighter ship, um, I don't know exactly what we're going to want to call this. Actual just fighter, a frigate, whatever you really want to kind of call it. The length is estimated to be at 90 meters, so that's what we have. Now, I did not change the mass from what we had before. Um, Actually, it kind of fumbling here on this part of it because I wasn't thinking about the mass of it. I was really more concerned about um, and of course, what I'm looking for here, I'm not going to. No, we'll just have to leave the mass be. Okay. We're going to have a size 3 vessel, capital ship piloting, autopilot. This might be a little bit high for the time frame, um, just being honest. And with that being the case, why don't I put it down to like a 2D plus 1 or something? Um, Actually, here, Nausicaans might not have the best autopilots and everything else, so 1D plus 1. Skeleton, or our crew is going to be 15, very much like that from the Antares. Now, not knowing how big of a crew we're going to have, I kind of left that in there from the Antares. Skeleton is going to be a 1. But I did change our passengers, so I figured that they're not going to have a lot of passengers. They might take on either some extra troops or possibly someone to ransom off or something like that. So, having about 10 passengers is probably plenty enough. Um, and again, going from the episode of Fortunate Son, if they had to keep going back and raiding that one ship, again, they may not have a large cargo capacity. So I only have about 2,000 metric tons, which would kind of, in my mind, make some sense. They can hit the freighter, get some cargo, go back, drop it off, make some money, keep going back and forth doing this. Not a very big ship, not a huge cargo hold to put a lot of extra cargo in there from any of their raids. Consumables, I left the 3 years in here. I really don't know how much we really should have. So I just left the 3 years in there. So if you need to change it, by all means, change it. Now, I did change the warp drive because in our right up there, it said having a warp drive of 2 is projected. So we're going to have our standard is warp 1. Max is going to be a warp 2. Max rated, I put at a warp 2.8 for 6 hours. We're going to have our nav computer. Maneuverability is going to be a 0D plus 2. That's still kind of a holdover. Our space speed is a 5. So I don't know if we should actually have that any faster or slower. That without me going back and looking, which I just didn't do, to what the NX01 was, I really don't know exactly how well that mashes up. The hull is a 2D plus 1. Again, I wasn't looking back at the NX01 to see how well that was. The shields is only a 0D plus 2. I did change that one. Our sensors, I've changed this a little bit. This would be like our Mark One sensors or whatever, more rudimentary, nothing spectacular. So passively, we can scan out to 3 kilometers. We can do an active scan out to 7 kilometers. 0D bonuses on those. And our search is out to 10 kilometers. And our focus is out to 400 meters. And that's at a +1 bonus. Looking at some of the pictures here, we do have 3 type 1 type plasma weapons, keeping it as basic as I can for the time frame. And that's why I have the lowest that I can come up with. But one of the pictures under the front, it looks like there's two of them and then one in the rear. So that way, that's how I kind of came up with my three. Crew of 1, fire control is 0D, damage is 2D with a rate of fire being 2. Now, it doesn't say anything about any photon torpedoes of any sort. I am leaving, and this is the holdover from the Antares class, a Type 1 photon torpedo with 40 photon torpedoes total, spread of 1, damage of 3D. If you think it doesn't belong there, by all means, take it out. Like I said, this is just kind of coming up with something to be a nice raider, something that would be threatening, a need for Starfleet to have some sort of vessel patrolling areas. Something that's got a little bit of teeth, but not overly bad, hopefully. All right, we did keep in there the 2 class Delta tractor beams, one forward, one aft, a strength of 4D plus 2. We have class Alpha tractor beams for actually this, seeing that I took the shuttle bay out, should probably come out of here. So let's quick take that out of here. We don't need that in there. But I did change all of our miscellaneous here as well as our transporters. Oops. Now what do I got? I messed something up. And I hate it when it does that. Um, Gotta love these programs at times. All right. I'm just trying to move them up. And sometimes it does this to me. All right. Well, I guess what we're going to have to do is we're just going to have to kind of play with it as is here. Um, all right. So we do have crew quarters. We have 20 basic quarters, 5 expanded, and it's roughly going to be about 4 decks. Really, I'm kind of taking from one of the early Birds of Prey. I think it's the Raptor class that we would have seen in Enterprise, and it has roughly about 4 decks to it. So I'm kind of taking it from there, because that's roughly about the same size. Now we do have 10 escape pods, four personnel for capacity. This is commissioned in 21 something or other. Now I don't know exactly when this would have been really made, so I'm just kind of leaving it there. We have 1 personnel transporter with capacity for 6 personnel. We have 1 emergency transporter for 15,000 or for 22 personnel. And that might actually be a little on the higher side than what it should be. So, um, God, if I can only get rid of this thing. Anyways, um, we do have 1 cargo transporter for 400 kilograms, and that's really what we have here today. Now, unfortunately, my computer's kind of acting up here, which I know it's been having more and more issues lately, and I don't know why, but it is just what it is. And I don't get it. My computer just does goofy things at this point. All right. With that being what it is, um, it's an interesting design. Hopefully, I've given us something to kind of go up against. Something small, something to have fun with, and go from there. I'll try and get this posted up, and I know I'm a little bit behind here. Hopefully, I can get some of this done up this morning, and we can get all this stuff out and published on time. So, with that being said, thank you for visiting today. Outside of my issues with my computer, hope you're doing well, and I'll see you in the next video.